Just found out my abusive ex and his wife are struggling with infertility, and all I could think was, that's what they get. I know this is going to make me sound like a horrible person, but I need to get this off my chest because it's been weighing on me. I, 29F, recently learned some news about my ex, and my reaction surprised me, to say the least. It brought up a lot of old feelings that I thought I'd put to rest. Now I'm struggling with the guilt that came with the satisfaction I felt. Let me take you back to where this all started. My ex and I met in high school. I was 16 when we began dating, and I thought he was my world. We stayed together through the end of high school and the first couple of years of college. When you're young, you think your first love is everything. I thought he was my forever, and I believed that as long as we were together, we could get through anything. But looking back now, it's painfully clear that he was controlling, manipulative, and abusive from the start. I just couldn't see it then. It wasn't all bad in the beginning. Like most relationships, there were good times. Times when he made me laugh, when he made me feel special. But those good moments were overshadowed by a dark undercurrent that I didn't know how to identify back then. He would criticize me constantly, make me feel small, but then apologize and tell me he loved me, that he couldn't imagine life without me. It was a vicious cycle that became my new normal. And then, when I was 18, things took a turn that I never could have prepared for. During my freshman year of college, I found out I was pregnant. It was a shock. I wasn't prepared for it, and neither was he. But part of me hoped that maybe this would change things, that it would make him kinder, more considerate. I was scared but also hopeful that we could figure it out together. When I told him, his reaction was lukewarm. He wasn't happy, but he didn't seem devastated either. It was like he just accepted it as another fact of life, something that had happened to us. But then, just a few weeks later, I miscarried. It was the most heartbreaking experience I've ever been through. I remember that day so vividly. Curled up in pain, both physical and emotional, as I realized what was happening to my body. I called him, hoping he'd come to support me, but when he arrived, all he could talk about was how stressed he was and how the loss affected him. He made it all about him, about his grief. I was too broken to push back, too shattered to argue. That night, he insisted on having sex with me. He said it would help him cope, that it would make him feel better. I was so emotionally numb, so desperate for comfort, that I went along with it. But looking back, I realized that I didn't want it, not then, not in that moment. And that wasn't the last time he pressured me. In the months that followed, he continued to make me have sex with him whenever he wanted, even when I begged him to stop, even when I was crying. He would turn cold, make me feel like I was the problem, like I owed it to him because we were together. I fell into a deep depression. My friends and family noticed I was different, but I hid the details of what was happening. I didn't have the words to explain the depths of the pain I felt, and I believed somehow that I deserved it, that I had failed him by losing the pregnancy, and that I should do whatever it took to keep him happy. He became physically abusive around this time too. It started with shoves, then slaps, and then punches. I should have left him then, I know that now, but I was stuck in this twisted reality where I believed I was the one at fault, that if I just tried harder, if I could be the girlfriend he wanted, he wouldn't be so angry. It's hard to explain how trapped I felt, how alone. But one day, I found out he was cheating on me, and that betrayal was somehow the final straw. Finding out about the cheating was like a cold splash of water to the face. It hurt more than anything, but it also woke me up. I realized that I wasn't just dealing with his physical and emotional abuse. I was dealing with a person who had no respect for me at all. I remember confronting him about it, and he just shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. He said I was being dramatic, that it was just a fling, and I should get over it. I couldn't take it anymore. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of who I used to be before him, the girl who didn't deserve to be treated like this. I called my best friend and told her everything. About the cheating, about the abuse, about how scared I was. She helped me pack up my things and move out while he was away. I blocked his number, and with the support of my friends and family, I began to build a new life. It wasn't easy. It took years of therapy, self-reflection, and leaning on the people who loved me to finally start feeling like myself again. But I did it. I met my now husband, who is everything my ex was not: kind, patient, loving. He made me feel safe for the first time in a long time, and with him, I was able to start imagining a future that didn't involve fear or pain. We got married a few years ago, and we have 3 beautiful kids, with another one on the way. I'm happy, truly happy, and I thought I'd left my ex and everything that happened behind me. A few weeks ago, a mutual friend from high school resurfaced. She reached out on social media, and we decided to catch up over coffee. It felt nice to reminisce about the past, talking about old friends and what everyone was up to now. She mentioned my ex at one point, casually slipping into the conversation that he'd married the girl he'd been cheating on me with all those years ago. It stung a little to hear that, but I brushed it off. I was beyond that part of my life, or so I thought. Then she dropped the bombshell. She told me that my ex and his wife had been trying to have kids for years but were struggling with infertility. They had gone through multiple rounds of IVF, but nothing had worked. My friend spoke about it sympathetically, saying that it was heartbreaking to watch them go through so much pain. But as she told me all of this, I felt something shift inside me, something dark and unexpected. I felt satisfaction, relief, like some kind of weight had been lifted off my chest. All I could think was, that's what they get. It was like a rush of emotions hit me all at once. I remembered the night I lost my baby and how he treated me like an object to ease his grief. I remembered all the times he made me feel worthless, all the times he forced me into things I didn't want to do. And suddenly, it felt like the universe was balancing the scales. It felt like karma, but almost as quickly as that feeling came, it was replaced by guilt. I mean, who wishes infertility on someone? It's cruel, it's heartless. I sat there nodding along to my friend, but inside, I was wrestling with my own thoughts, wondering what kind of person I'd become if I could feel happy about someone else's pain, even if that someone was him. When I got home, I told my husband everything. He's always been my rock, and I didn't want to keep this from him. I expected him to be shocked, maybe even to judge me a little. But he just listened, holding my hand, letting me vent. When I finished, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. I kept saying how awful I felt for thinking what I did, for feeling relief at my ex's suffering. But my husband surprised me. He said, I don't blame you for feeling the way you do. After everything you went through with him, it's not surprising that you'd feel like this. It's not about wanting bad things to happen to others. It's about finally feeling like you're not the only one who suffered. His words made sense, but the guilt didn't fully go away. It's been days now, and I still find myself replaying that conversation with my friend in my head. I keep wondering if maybe I'm not as good of a person as I thought I was. I keep questioning whether my feelings make me just as bad as him. I'm trying to see this as a chance for closure, a chance to finally let go of the pain he caused me, to accept that the universe has its own way of balancing things out. I don't want to be the kind of person who finds joy in other people's suffering, even if they hurt me. But maybe, just maybe, it's okay to acknowledge that I needed to feel that sense of justice, even if it was only for a moment. I know I have a lot to be grateful for. I have a loving husband, 3 amazing kids, and a life that feels full of possibilities. But those scars from my past run deep, and sometimes they still bleed when I least expect it. I don't know if I'll ever fully make peace with my feelings about my ex, but I do know that I'm doing my best to focus on the good things in my life and to be a better person than I was yesterday. So AITA? Was I wrong for feeling satisfaction when I found out my abusive ex is struggling with infertility? Does that make me a bad person? Or is it just a reaction to all the pain he put me through? I'm hoping to get some perspective from others who might have faced similar emotions, because right now, I'm struggling to understand how to forgive myself for the thoughts I had. If anyone out there has some advice or insight, I'd appreciate it more than you know. Thanks for reading.